Eoin Sheahan, come on in. Good morning to you.
Good morning, lads. How are things?
Going good. Interesting stuff this morning?
Yeah, pretty good. Like it was an interesting captain's run in the sense that the captain wasn't there. It was the vice-captain, Johnny Sexton, on his own doing the captain's run. So the team are staying a bit away from here. It's a bit of a drive out here, so they did a session this morning. And the majority of the team, all 29 of the available players, in fact, elected to not come to the stadium and check the surface out. But Jonathan Sexton likes to get his eye in. He likes to know exactly what the ground is like, and he decided to come here and have a bit of a kick around. So it was a bit of a bizarre setup with all the press there waiting for one player to come out and kick the ball between the posts. Joey Carberry has played in the stadium 2 years ago, so that was probably part of his decision to not come here. And Conor Murray as well felt that he didn't need the trek out here really today to do it. So Johnny Sexton and Richie Murphy really were by default the two candidates up for media today as well. And Sexton was talking about his halfback partner Conor Murray at times. Of course, they're set to become the record capped holder when it comes to halfback pairing in Irish history, set to usurp Ronan O'Gara and Peter Stringer in that regard this weekend. And of course, he had some interesting things to say about New Zealand as well. That was like the start of the press conference, asked about that infamous game in 2016, not the one in Chicago, the one when New Zealand came looking for blood in Dublin a couple of weeks later.
He turned up 40 minutes late. Was there like a bit of guff between them? Have we struck the first blow ahead of this game?
Well, there was a lot of New Zealand media who were like, screw this, and they left. They might have had to go to another media commitment. I'm not sure, are the All Blacks out on the pitch now or something? Maybe they had to go to something else, but they weren't exactly happy. It was like 25 minutes late. You knew exactly how late Johnny Sexton was getting because the New Zealand media were piping up with the exact minute count every so often. So they weren't happy, and a couple of them just decided to leave the press conference room. So I'm sure they'll be able to, if they can just watch off the ball, they can just go onto our YouTube channel and find out what Johnny Sexton said anyway. So we've done the job for them.
Shove it up him is what I'm saying.
I know kickers all have different routines and different ways of preparing for games. Is that not still a bit surprising that Joey Carberry doesn't go along the day before the match? Right, he's played there 2 years ago. I would have just thought, this is what you do.
Over, yeah.
And also, I would have thought, if Johnny Sexton's going, I'm going.
That's right. Davy Fitzgerald style. Wait outside the stadium, knocking the ball up against the wall.
Yeah, it is. It's a good point. Like, because you're looking at obviously Richie kind of going through the motions with him, throwing the ball over and back to him. I mean, like, I know it's a very small thing, but if you're kind of back up out half, are you not actually immersing yourself with the number one out half as much as possible, even if it is just kind of being almost a backup to him in every facet? Showing up to the captain's run, throwing the ball to him, getting him warmed up. I mean, I guess being a sponge as much as possible. He might say he's done enough of that throughout his career so far, and perhaps this morning was a very arduous session. We don't know, and they were better off just staying at home. Or then again, maybe it was a situation where, because of World Rugby regulations, they have to put somebody up for media. Somebody had to come to the stadium and check the place out, and Johnny Sexton was like, screw it, I'll just go along. So
our own, go with the conspiracy theory. Maybe there's an injury in the camp, and they didn't want to show it. So they held everybody else back. I'm just saying, could have happened.
It would not be like this team for that to happen, Nathan. Is all I'm saying. Now, there's no whispers really around that at all. I don't think.
Come on, start something. Go with me on this.
We know that from listening to Danny O'Reilly during the week that what happens is, and there's an unusual source for this story, but a valid one nonetheless. At this World Cup, in fact, what happens is they send all the players out on the pitch. They let the media out to have a look at them, and there's Rob Kearney cantering around, looks to be in great old form. And as soon as everybody's gone, suddenly Kearney's getting off. He's getting a bit of treatment. That's what happens.
Well, yeah.
Did he tell us that on air?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
All right.
I mean, I'm pretty sure he did. Okay, let's move on.
That didn't happen.
All right, let's get a flavour of what interesting stuff Johnny Sexton had to say at the press conference this morning. Dig me out of it, Tommy. What have we got?
Yeah, look, I'm sure they will bring that physical edge that they always do. And I'm sure that's what they'll be speaking about, leading into the game. I think as far as that last game went, I think that was almost a turning point in a lot of the law changes after that game in terms of high tackles and, some of the yellow cards that were given out, some of the things that were missed would now be red. So I don't think that they probably weren't intentional at the time, But if they happen now, there'd be bigger consequences. So I don't think it'll happen again. I think they had a game where they went down to 14 against Australia, so I'm sure their discipline will be very, very good on the day.
Yeah, that was Johnny Sexton. He was asked about the New Zealand backlash after Ireland beat the All Blacks in Chicago and whether we should have expected it again after beating them 11 months ago. Another clip of Sexton here. I think we've this ready to go, where he's talking about Conor Murray becoming the most capped himself and Conor Murray becoming the most capped half-back pairing in Irish rugby history at the weekend.
Like I said last week, or started this week, when we started off together, you wouldn't have believed that we'd have gone on and played this many games together. It was like two strangers. We were almost introducing ourselves to each other in the first few games. And look, we've gone from strength to strength. He's a top quality operator. His quality of pass, his kicking game, the basics. What world class scrum halves are, and he's up against one. Again tomorrow in Aaron Smith. But it's been a pleasure to play alongside him, and I hope that we get many more together. At the end of the World Cup, you guys will probably turn and start calling for our heads because we'll be too old and the next batch has to come through. I can see it already, but we hope that we've got a few more years left together. Yeah.
We mentioned on to Ronan a bit earlier on that your comments of the Justin Marshall interview, which he said he'd seen, and he hadn't really considered the point about Murray being maybe relying too much on his kicking game, but that there might have been some validity in it. So in fact, Owen, I think he went as far as to say that Conor Murray might have watched it and be thinking, Jesus, it could be something in this.
It's interesting actually, because we were just having a conversation side to side of the pitch when we were kind of chatting about kickers in the Irish team, and one of the journalists kind of brought up the idea that Rob Kearney used to be is a fantastic kicker. He's always been a fantastic kicker, and kind of didn't focus on kicking because he had to focus on other areas of his game. And the only way he got to become a top class full back at international rugby was because he focused on all the different facets of his game, and he didn't focus on becoming a kicker. And it just kind of triggered that what Justin Marshall had said as well to me earlier in the week about this fact that Conor Murray has been so integral to the entire kicking game for Ireland, the box kicking game. He became the best at it, and he's almost become a victim of his own success, that he is now himself and this game plan can't be disattached at this point. So has the rest of his game suffered? Well, Marshall certainly thought so earlier in the week, and it is an interesting thought that he's not a scrum half as such anymore. When Ireland are playing their best rugby, he is a box-kicking scrum half primarily, and then he's a scrum half on a secondary level. So it's interesting to think about that, the sort of regimented way that Joe Schmidt plays. Like, if you took Conor Murray as a scrum half and put him into any other team in the world, how would he fare, given the way he's currently programmed by Joe Schmidt? It'd be a very interesting experiment. So, yeah, it's something that I hadn't heard too much talk about before. It's interesting that O'Gara kind of agrees with it.
Is this team too predictable? You were saying in the office, we mentioned it to Ronan O'Gara, that Joe Schmidt probably can't believe his luck that he's ended up with this 15 all fit and available right now, and on this sort of 3-4 year cycle, players that have come in, that he's sort of ended up with a 15 that you've almost could have picked 2-3 years ago. Is it a worry that nobody has come in and put their hands up over the last 2 or 3 years, or even over the last month at the World Cup, and said, my form is so good, you have to put me in there? Or is it that Joe Schmidt is so wedded to a certain 15, a certain style, that he's not open-minded enough to let those players in?
I think it kind of comes... So if we're going to give out about Ireland in terms of being predictable, because I think you're right. I think they're extremely predictable. I think they have to be one of the more predictable teams left in this competition, probably the most, in fact. But what comes with that is the actual positives that Ireland have brought over the last couple of years, which is this routine level of success. Okay, granted, this year has not been routine whatsoever, but there did seem to be a place this time last year where opposition teams would come up against Ireland, know exactly what Ireland are going to do, and still lose the game. And I don't fully buy this idea that teams just figured Ireland out in the year 2019. It's not like Ireland came up with a brand shiny new game plan in the middle to end of 2018. The All Blacks, the Aussies, had the Grand Slam of 2018 to look at. People in the Grand Slam of 2018 had 2017 to look at, and they still couldn't do anything about it. It's not like video analysis against Ireland has just come in this year. Sure, they're in the crosshairs a little bit more because of beating the All Blacks last year, but I think there probably has to be an acceptance that Ireland have just not executed their game plan to the same level this year, that there has been a number of individual performances that have been subpar at very, very important moments throughout the year. yes, they're predictable, but being predictable was almost the key part of the success over the last couple of years for Schmidt. So I'm not sure. I think that the blueprint was always there, but you always had to kind of count on Ireland falling below par a little bit. But if you flip that on its head entirely, beating the All Blacks kind of is based on the same premise as well, that you need them to come below their top level to actually have a chance of beating them, because I think most All Blacks would privately admit, you kind of get it from the tone they talked about last year, they privately admit that they weren't at their best 12 months ago. And then to take your point on further, you certainly couldn't have predicted this All Black starting 15 12 months ago, given the amount of changes. Whereas with the Irish team, you probably could have, like, not injuries notwithstanding, like you probably would have had Sean O'Brien or Dan Levy in a starting team. Like, would you have seen Josh van der Fleer being the starting 7 by this time? Many people perhaps might have, but outside of that, it's kind of hard to pick anybody who wouldn't have been expected. Perhaps the demise of Devin Toner wouldn't have been seen from a year out, but really you're talking about, if most people would pick 12 or 13 at the starting 15 from 12 months ago for sure.
Yeah, I think it's 12 of the game from 11 months ago that started.
And arguably stronger, because the players coming in are Murray and Henshaw, and then I guess Ian Henderson for Toner is probably seen somewhat like for like.
Yeah, and I think we actually won't know the answer to that until after the game on Saturday. Like, it'll all be, at that point you'll go, oh, this master plan.
All of this is pointless, let's be honest, Adrian. What the hell have we been doing?
Right, we know that it's obviously Joe Schmidt's third last game in charge of Ireland, so he's on the run-in, I suppose, is the what's happening here, Nathan.
Well, I presume I know where this is going. That maybe Joe Schmidt didn't want to turn up for the captain's run today because he didn't want to sit through this could be your last ever pre-match press conference. Yeah. It could well be Rory Best's last ever game for Ireland. But more than that, this might be the last time we talk to Eoin from Japan.
That's actually where we're going. So press pause on that for 1 second and rewind about 10 seconds to where you were going just before you get into Sheahan Sushi, which we're coming to now in a minute. Johnny Sexton asked again about Joe Schmidt's legacy.
How many times I've spoken about Joe a lot. I'm going to get some serious slagging now when I go back to the hotel. There's already enough slagging about me and Joe's relationship for me to delve any deeper. We had Richard Cooper in just for lunch today, and he did a bit of a skit on Joe, which was very good, and Joe took it very well. But look, Joe's legacy really it speaks for itself. We don't want to get distracted by it being his last game, or second last game, or third last game. We want it to be. We'll talk about him when it's done, and it'll be the same for Rory, but his legacy speaks for itself, and I have spoke about it on numerous occasions. So if we can maybe go back and look at that press conference a few weeks ago, it'll be okay.
Yeah, I'd say he took it very well, all right. And then when the doors were closed, everybody got tarred and feathered.
Well, we know from Danny O'Reilly again that Joe Schmidt personally...
This was on air. Oh, was it?
Yes. Joe Schmidt personally books all the entertainment.
He does.
I think it's incredible.
The EO, entertainment officer.
He literally rings them up, then calls them again a couple of days in advance to confirm exactly what's going to happen. Yeah. You would have just thought, surely there's somebody who can do this. Yeah. And he probably learned his lesson, because obviously Danny O'Reilly ended up with his number, which wasn't an ideal scenario. One
of the superstars of the World Cup, obviously, of the last number of weeks, somebody who nobody would have really known very much about, Nathan, before the entire thing began. No. It was like, to be honest, it wasn't even that much expectation. But Fukuoka is going to retire when the World Cup is done, so, we might not
I hope it's not his last day.
Oh, and come forth. This could be your last couple of days. Would you miss the place, or are you really hoping Ireland win and you can stay on?
I think if Ireland win, it just gives a whole new energy. Of course you want Ireland to win, because the pandemonium will just go to a whole new level. And it's been absolutely phenomenal. If Ireland and Japan win this weekend, that is the ideal situation to be in for the last fortnight, because it'll just be crazy, especially when I said last fortnight, you've got a third, fourth place playoff. Okay, if you lose the semi-final, it's kind of a bit of a drab last week, but still, if Ireland and Japan win this weekend, it'll be absolutely insane. I'm sure there are plenty of people who've taken out credit union loans to be here for the next few weeks, people who are perhaps going to do a U-turn on their annual leave and actually say, I'm going to hang out in Japan for a little bit longer if they win. And after thinking about it, I probably do want them to win. It's been a marathon. It is a marathon, a Rugby World Cup. Nathan, you were at the last one. Thankfully, I don't have kids and didn't get chickenpox this time, so it's been a little more easier for me.
Well, thankfully you didn't live in a Premier Inn in Burton-on-Trent for 2 weeks.
Exactly.
Looks a little bit more interesting. Though I should have thought of the video with the cats. If I'd known that would have gone down so well. There was many cats and all sorts of animals around the place.
I definitely got the long straw in that regard. It's an amazing country. Like, it's absolutely fantastic. Like, you can't say a bad word really about the country, except for when the typhoon season isn't an amazing kind of facet of the place. But they dealt with that so well last week. The recovery from that was so quick. To get a game played in Yokohama last weekend when nobody saw that coming, especially after an earthquake even in and amongst the typhoon the previous day. It was remarkable. So the people have been brilliant. It's been a fantastic country. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Like, it hasn't really felt like work that much. So
that's
good. It's been a fantastic.
You'll be straight back in there when you come back.
He's talking like a man who thinks he's coming home, doesn't he?
That's what I'm worried about.
Yeah, God, that's the thing. Like, this is not an attitude. Joe Schmidt would not tolerate this sort of attitude inside in the Irish camp over the next 24 hours. I may or may not have gone to a certain district to pick up a few bits to bring home yesterday as well. I really, that is a defeated attitude.
What sort of district? Dear God, Owen.
Shopping district, Nathan. Well, I'm not sure what
Cats district, obviously. Cats district.
I've been impressed with Sheahan's sushi because I was worried, obviously, and for many reasons. Have you been calling home on a regular basis?
Been keeping in contact.
That's all right.
WhatsApp.
Yeah,
that's all right. Because I was a bit worried when it was all kicking off last weekend. That Mammy Sheahan would be worried. And
the hand.
The hand. Oh, that and the earthquake and the.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
The typhoon. All of that. He'd do that thing and he wouldn't get in touch for like 48 hours, and she'd be cursing us from on high for sending him out there. I thought he'd do Usain Bolt in Beijing when he went there, and it'd be McDonald's chicken nuggets every day. Right. But in fairness to him, he's opened his mind.
No, the hand kept him on the straight and narrow. I think from the health point of view, kept him out of the dungeons of Tokyo.
I'm looking forward to eating fruit because I just haven't had any. I had a banana there, and it's the most looking forward to a piece of food that I've ever been in my entire life.
Came in 20 pieces of plastic, no doubt. Everybody's hoping this isn't your last full live dispatch from Japan, so we're going to even indulge ourselves in that kind of conversation. We'll be talking to you again on Monday morning, and we're looking back on an amazing weekend for Irish rugby. We are going. Thanks very much. Go on. What have you got?
It's a late flight home Monday anyway if they do lose, so really this isn't the end.
We'll be talking to you either way, Grant. That makes everything much easier.